Hello, Molweni Hujambo, Salam, I'm Thembekile Mrototo, and this is Unwrap Africa, where we focus every week on the latest news, trends and successes of the African continent. Siyaqala. As ever, we want to hear your thoughts on Unwrap Africa, and tonight we're asking, should there be an age limit for people who want to run in presidential elections on the African continent? Let us know what you think by sending a voice note to our WhatsApp number, +278 459 1897. That's +278 459 1897. You can also find us on Facebook, where we are SABC Unwrap Africa. And on X, our handle is SABC News_TV. We'll take a look at your feedback and your thoughts later in the hour. But first, let's have a look at the main stories from Africa this week. The AU chair Mahmoud Ali Youssouf and the US advisor Massad Boulos have met to push for Sudan to get to a ceasefire, emphasizing that the ongoing international cooperation and recent successes in regional peace efforts, including Rwanda and the DRC agreement, prove that this can be done. In Senegal, authorities have intercepted 112 migrants drifting near Dakar in a wooden canoe, preventing a perilous Atlantic crossing. Despite increased patrols, the irregular migration to Europe's Canary Islands continues. Nigeria's Dangote refinery has exported its first gasoline shipment to the US, signaling Africa's growing energy influence. Major traders secure more shipments as the refinery reshapes global fuel markets. Gunmen have attacked a baptism ceremony in the Taliberi region in western Niger, killing 22 people who are believed to be civilians. It's amid rising regional violence. Authorities have confirmed the attack was carried out by jihadists. 12 athletes have competed in Libya's first truck pulling contest. It's a showcase of strength amid growing local interest. Organizers plan to open a training club as the sport gains momentum in Misrata. And in the Western Cape town of Zolani in South Africa, brothers Solima and Kuma Matiso are turning ballet dreams into reality. It's all through a local dance school. Their talent has basically earned them scholarships to international programs, and now they're inspiring hope in their immediate community. Well, the wait continues following elections in Malawi. Early unofficial results suggest that the former President Peter Mutharika is in the lead over incumbent Lazarus Chakwera. The election marks the country's first national vote since the Constitutional Court in Malawi annulled the 2019 vote outcome. That was prompted by widespread election irregularities. It led to a rerun, which was held in 2020, which Chakwera won, unseating Mutharika. The country is also currently grappling with political uncertainty and a severe economic crisis, considered one of the worst in history. Bonola Maribe has more for you.
For 7.2 million registered voters, Malawi's election on Tuesday was crucial for sustaining survival. This comes after the country began facing a range of challenges since the turn of the decade, from economic stagnation to climate change. Current President Lazarus Chakwera campaigned on promises to end corruption and create 1 million jobs, but his term has been marred by nepotism scandals and an economic downturn, while Peter Mutharika is seeking redemption despite corruption allegations from his own presidency. This division was mirrored on election day, with technical failures in biometric voter machines forcing some stations to revert to manual checks.
So what happens now, as you've seen, they're taking the boxes with the monitors and with the officials that are here, some of the observers like us. We're going to witness the counting. And after that, they're going to take them to the main tally center, where there's also going to be a continuation.
Yet, despite the challenges, the executive secretary of the Malawian Human Rights Commission says that the voting process continued smoothly.
We've had a number of cases reported from the northern region as well as the southern region, some districts where our teams were saying that some centers had problems with their biometric devices. And again, as usual, there were also some reports that stated that they didn't receive adequate training. So, it's also a question of whether people were able to, use those fully with their capacity, or it was really a malfunction, for example, of the biometric device.
In spite of a peaceful voting day, international observers raised concerns about fairness, stating that the state resources and unregulated campaign money gave the ruling Malawi Congress Party a decisive advantage. Despite this, voters still have optimism for the future of the country. He says, the candidate I have voted for should make sure that youths are employed more than they have been. I want to see more youth in all sectors of development. He says, the past 5 years have been fair to me, but a lot needs to be done going forward. Election results are expected to be revealed by the 24th of September. Bonolo Maribe, SABC News.
Well, South Africa's former Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, Dr. Naledi Pandor, says that women on the continent should not shy away from contesting elections. Dr. Pandor has commended the former Malawian President Joyce Banda for running again in what has been a tough presidential race back home.
I want to begin by congratulating Umama Joyce Banda for standing as a candidate for president in Malawi. I haven't seen the results as yet, but I think her fortitude and the leadership she has shown by courageously making herself available and running what I'm told was a really amazing, energetic campaign, that is the kind of steadfast commitment and bravery that we need from women in Africa. I believe we have thousands of women on the continent who are excellent material for leadership, but who still hang back in the shadows and don't put themselves forward, particularly for national leadership. So I would like to encourage women to come forward, to have a belief in themselves that they will do better for our continent than many of our leaders have done up to now. Many of us earn an income, a livelihood of some kind or another. If we could join forces and form a formidable group of women supporting leadership in Africa, I believe we could raise sufficient resources among ourselves as the millions of women in Africa. It's just that we should have the determination to establish the organizational form that would take a vision like this into reality.
On that note, we asked you at the beginning of the show whether you think there should be age limits for people who want to run for the presidency in Africa. Let's have a look at what you've said so far. Larry Gumbe says ageism is a crime, so disagreeing with the idea of age limits then, Larry. We've got one more here saying, yes, there has to be. Africa has become a circus of retirement rulers. Let's see if we can bring another tweet up. A post on X. We're taking your thoughts on whether you think there should be age limits for people who want to run to be heads of state in Africa. And this year we're seeing a lot of people who are past the age of 70 contesting elections. In Malawi, the two front runners are Lazarus Chakwera, who's 70, Peter Mutharika, the former president who wants to return, is 85. So should there be age limits for people who want to run for the presidency in Africa? We'll continue to take more of your thoughts later in the program. This is Unwrap Africa. Well, still to come, United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres speaks to SABC News ahead of a world leaders gathering for the United Nations General Assembly. So the upcoming United Nations General Assembly in New York is seen as a fundamental moment for heads of state and government to come together to find ways, if you will, to speak about issues, the multiple crises that currently bedevil the world, and see if they can actually be resolved. Antonio Guterres this week has been speaking to SABC News correspondent Sherwin Bryce-Pease ahead of next week's high-level meeting that will focus on a multitude of issues, from marking the 80th anniversary of the organization's establishment to the many conflicts, including Sudan and the situation in Gaza.
UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, welcome back to SABC News.
Great pleasure to be with you again.
You said this week that as leaders make their way to New York for the UN's 80th anniversary and, of course, high-level week, for what some call the World Cup of diplomacy, this is a gathering not about scoring points but about solving problems. What is the fundamental shift that needs to happen in order for this to be less about point scoring and more about problem solving that actually changes lives for the better on the ground where it matters the most?
Well, this is a fantastic opportunity. You have 150 heads of state and government, and you have heads of state and government of every single crisis that exists in the world. So this is a fundamental moment for them to come together, and to be able to find mechanisms of dialogue, ways to start processes, allowing for crises to be effectively solved. We need leadership from the top. And this is the best moment in the world where we can have all leaders together, and we can, if they want, provide leadership from the top to address the horrible crisis we face in so many places of the world because of conflict, but also to address some of the crucial problems related to sustainable development, climate change, artificial intelligence, and others that will be in the center of the debates during this summit.
We'll get into some of those specifics, SG, but let me ask you this. As the UN marks its 80th anniversary, it also faces a major liquidity crisis, due in part to the shortfalls in contributions to both the regular and peacekeeping budgets by certain member states. You've also embarked on a major review of UN operations in order to streamline how this place works. Explain to us, in ways perhaps our grandparents in rural villages will understand, what is the financial reckoning that this United Nations faces, and what does it mean for how this organization will operate into the future?
Now, we have two areas in the finance of the United Nations. One area is the financing of all our humanitarian and development agencies that do a fantastic work around the world. I mean, fighting hunger, fighting disease, supporting migrants and refugees. These are funded by voluntary contributions.
On Sudan, what can you say about Sudan? You have two rival governments. You have Al-Fasher that is under siege. You have essentially the largest hunger crisis developing in the world, famine in parts of North Darfur. And it's not getting the requisite attention that, for example, a Gaza situation gets. What can you say about Sudan and the way forward here?
Well, we are working hard to try to, first of all, as peace is not to be seen immediately, but we are working hard with the two sides for the protection of civilians and for humanitarian access, to be able to cross the lines and to be able to access the whole of the territory. But the central problem is that the war has a cruelty and a barbarity that is absolutely intolerable. And you mentioned Al-Fasher. I mean, in Al-Fasher you have 200,000 people that, as in some areas, a famine situation that is constantly bombarded. And when you ask for a ceasefire, it was rejected by the RFS. And at the same time, even convoys of humanitarian aid have been bombed. And today, humanitarian aid is simply not being able to get there.
Impunity is rife in
Is
Sudan.
absolutely intolerable. And as you said, there is total impunity. And the impunity comes from the geopolitical divides. And the geopolitical divides paralyze the Security Council. And so all these actors that you see in Sudan, as in Libya or in the DRC or wherever, or they all feel that they can do whatever they want because nothing will happen to them. And this is something that needs to change. And one of the central aspects of this change is the reform of the Security Council. And by the way, I believe that the African continent is the area of the world that has more reasons to complain about the non-reform until now of the Security Council, because Africa has been, to a certain extent, a double victim of colonialism in its impacts itself,
right,
in the suffering of the people, and in the creation of economies of exploitation that, even after the colonial powers leave, take time to adapt in order to allow for true sustainable development. But then they are victims of colonialism because when the institutions that are today the governance institutions in the world, Security Council, IMF, World Bank, when they were created, African countries, with the exception of very few that were independent, were not there. And so the system was conceived in a way that fundamentally serves the interest of the rich and powerful.
I have about 2 minutes left, so let me get two questions in. On the G20 and its role on the question of debt relief and the question of reforming international financial architecture. As you know, South Africa currently leads this formation and will host a leaders' summit in November. What is the particular responsibility of G20 countries in terms of reforming the global financial architecture, which you've just alluded to, and what are the consequences if that does not happen?
We need to have a reform of the institutions for the power within those institutions to correspond to what the world is today. And second, there are a number of things that need immediate responses. Debt relief is one. The cost of capital, the reduction of the cost of capital, because I mean, African countries pay interest rates that are much higher than European countries, even European countries that have a worse economic situation from the point of view of their deficits than some African countries. And at the same time, the need to mobilize much more resources, namely in concessional funding, that is not available today to middle-income countries in distress, because they are still developing countries, they are still relatively poor, but because they are classified as middle-income countries, they do not receive any kind of concessional funding, and that is absurd. So there are a number of changes that need to be made beyond the reform of the structures, and I must say I fully support the initiatives of the South Africa presidency of G20 in this regard.
And I take it you'll be going to the summit in November. Final question for you. Next year we begin the process of selecting your replacement as Secretary General. There has been much pushback in recent years from powerful countries against any notion that the next Secretary General must be a woman, despite not having a female in that position for 80 years. What do you make of this moment, and what could it mean for where we go from here?
Well, I have no role to play in the choice of my successor.
You can say what you want.
There is one thing that is evident. There is one thing I'm guilty. I mean, the present Secretary General is not a woman.
We should hold you accountable for that.
The truth is that the changes that we have parity today, not only at the high management of the UN, about 170 people, but at resident coordinators across the world. And we are moving to gender parity in 2028. So, being a man, I am perfectly aware of the need of gender parity. And indeed, a very important symbol is that in the presidency of countries, as in the General Secretariat of the United Nations or other organizations, women effectively play a role.
Secretary General Antonio Guterres, good luck next week. Thank you very much for making time for
all the
SABC
best.
News.
Thank you very much.
The 9th Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, in conversation with us here ahead of high-level week, and of course he has about 15 months left in this job.
Well, we asked you at the beginning of the program here on Unwrap Africa whether you think there should be age limits for people who want to run as presidents or heads of state in Africa. Let's have a look at more of your thoughts that have come in the last while from X. Vusi says that yes, no old age like South Africa, even members of parliament must all be under 55. These people want to die in parliament. And then he says, look at Danny Jordan, cheering atmosphere always, but still heading Safa to the grave. Collins Ntelele says that yes, of course, we can't have an 18-year-old president. One here says yes, and they should have no criminal record and should not be accused of corruption, fraud, looting and lying. That takes 99% of the current African leaders out, I think. And Typhos Shave says that indeed there should be. As always, a reminder that the views that we've just reflected now are not the views of the SABC, but of our viewers to the question of the day. So the 11th edition of the Ghana Festival in Pretoria has brought together Africans from all walks of life. They aim to celebrate the insights and sounds of Ghanaian culture. Our producer, Nonhlanhla Mthembu, went along to have a look.
We are at the Ghana Fest 2025 and we have the Togbio and Mamao all the way from the Volta region of Ghana. Welcome to South Africa.
Thank you very much. We are happy to be here. We are members of the FB Association. FB is a language that is spoken in the Volta. It's one of the languages, the main language that is spoken in the Volta region of Ghana.
Sir, let's hear from you. What are you enjoying about the festival?
It brings the culture of Ghanaians together. As we are here talking or after performing, you can see another culture from Ghana performing. So we are all intertwined, we are all together.
Ghana Fest is one of the flagship events in South Africa that Ghanaians organize every year. As you can see, the atmosphere is beautiful. It's basically a cultural celebration, inviting the diaspora to enjoy. I mean, with the already good relationship South Africa has with Ghana. So it's basically social cohesion, you know, a platform to share culture.
Nandi buye Eastern Cape, King Williamstown, Zulumba Fano together, we are from Ghana. We are representing Ashanti Kingdom, Ashanti region, and we have our king called Otufo Osei Tutu II. So I am representing the Queen Mother of Ashanti.
South Africa is a very nice country. We like our culture, and we want to also show you our culture.
We need to create the platform for a cultural exchange everywhere that we can.
And from Pretoria all the way to Ghana, that'll do it for this edition of Unwrap Africa. We're back with you next week, 8 p.m. on Sunday on SABC News. Thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.